StreetHD, a member of our community, noticed only towards the latter stage of their recovery the importance of self-love and asked us to talk more about this, which I'm only so happy to do because I have found nothing in the over 10 years that I've helped people sleep to help more than self-love. In this episode, we're going to see why, and more importantly, how you can start a practice that can change your sleep and life forever. Hi there, I'm Daniel, sleep physician turned sleep coach and educator, and this is Minding the Comments, a series where we look at comments from the community that we can learn from in a way that leads us all where we want to be, which is a place of peaceful sleep and peace of mind. In this week's episode of Minding the Comments, we're taking a look at a comment from StreetHD. Let's read it together. StreetHD says, I love your videos. So glad to hear. Can you also do an updated and maybe even long one about the topic of self-love? Towards the end of my journey, I really noticed the importance of self-love and how much we tend to underestimate it. Thanks so much, StreetHD, for this comment. And I'm so glad that you found your way out of the struggle and for pointing us towards what I think helps more than anything else. I think really this is the number one most underestimated helpful tool, if you will, or practice on our journey of leaving insomnia and really all inner struggles. Now, why do I say that? And how do we arrive at a place where we are kinder to ourselves, where we love ourselves, where we're gentler with ourselves? That is exactly what we're going to talk about today. So I've broken this up into two sections. One, why self-love is the number one remedy, and how to practically love ourselves. Let's start at the top here. Why do I say that nothing really helps more than being kind and gentle with ourselves, loving ourselves? Well, let's see this very clearly by using an analogy, a story here. Imagine there's a task that you're very familiar with. You know exactly how to bake a pie, let's say. You know exactly how to do that. You've done it a million times before. Now, ask yourselves, in which condition will you do it really well? Condition A is you are being micromanaged. Somebody's telling you exactly how to do every step, and they're critiquing every little thing you're supposedly doing wrong, giving you like feedback every second, every minute, feedback, and then they're really harsh with you. Or B, somebody's telling you like, you figure it out, you know how to do it your way. In which of these two conditions do you think you would bake that pie the best, with the most ease and with the best result? We all know that we prefer option B. When we know how to do something, we strongly prefer just being given freedom to do it our way rather than being like constantly like micromanaged. And this is because then we're not scared. We're not scared of making a mistake. We're not fearful of being reprimanded, so we can do what we need to do easily. The same thing plays out inside us. The thing is that our brain, your brain, our brain, it knows how to produce sleep. It knows how to produce peace of mind. It's done that a million times before. It knows exactly how to do that. What is in its way is actually our own attempts at micromanaging sleep. That is what keeps us struggling in the same way. Self-criticism often shows up as a self-critical inner micromanager. And imagine if like our brain knows how to sleep, but it also knows that if we're not falling asleep fast enough, if we're not getting deep sleep, if we're not doing it consistently, then another part of our brain is going to be like, that wasn't good enough. Why can't you sleep? Why can't you do this? Can't you get this already? You had so much progress. Well, now it's all gone. Like these type of like micromanagement, self-critical thoughts is what keeps our mind in this like threatened state, a state of alert, a state of danger that ultimately keeps us not sleeping well, which leads to more criticism, right? Which keeps us from sleeping well. And this is like the loop that really, really it makes things difficult for us. Another way we can express this is that if we're never satisfied with ourselves, we're never satisfied with our sleep, we're never satisfied with how we feel or think, we will never really feel at peace. On the other hand, the more we are satisfied, okay, content, accepting of whatever happens, the more peace we are going to experience in life. And this is why I think that there are many things I like to teach on, many things that are helpful, but I really believe that the self-kindness is like what helps more than anything else, because even if we had very little education, we didn't really understand what was going on with insomnia, and I stress education a lot. If we just were really kind with ourselves and we were like, I don't really understand what's happening, but it's okay, we wouldn't struggle. So I really, really think this helps more than anything else. Now, what I think is perhaps even more valuable to talk about now is number 2 here, which is how do we practically love ourselves? How are we practically kind and gentle with ourselves? This comes up very often. And a nice analogy, I didn't actually write this down, but it just came to me as I was speaking here, is that we can think of how we speak to other people and speak to ourselves. If we imagine that a friend of ours said that they had a choppy night, they hardly slept at all, would we go like, what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you sleep? It's so easy to sleep. Like, why can't you do that? Why can't you do this? We would never, ever do that. We'd be like, give them a hug. We'll be like, it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. Like something like that, right? When we talk to ourselves in that way, that is a kind and gentle way. That is an expression of self-love. Another very nice analogy is like, imagine how you talk to a child, or the child version of yourself, or imagine how your grandfather would talk to you. Those are other ways we can see like what's like self-love practically means. And when we say this again, it can sound like a prescription, like, oh, I need to talk to myself the way my grandparent would talk to myself. But that's really not the point here. The point here is that our grandfather would not be critical. We would not be critical of ourselves. We would not be critical towards the child. So self-love is really, it's really about the absence of self-criticism. It's not, self-love is not about like giving yourself a date at a spa, or like some nice chocolate or ice cream. Those things can be very, very nice, of course. But again, that's not in itself self-love. Self-love is more about how we treat ourselves, and treating ourselves without micromanaging, without critiquing, without being harsh on ourselves. So in a way, we can say that self-love actually is another way of expressing non-action. It's non-doing, it's non-intervention, it's the absence of critique or self-criticism. And how can we express this in more clearly? Well, an experience that I've had, that I'm sure many parents have had, is that you're driving in your car and your kids are in the backseat and they're fighting each other. Like they're screaming, they're maybe throwing stuff at each other. Like, they're fighting, and you often say like, stop fighting, and that sounds like a command, like a direction, an order. But imagine if your kid would be like, what do you mean? What do you mean stop fighting? How do we do that? How do we stop fighting? Then if you think about it, there really only is one way to really express this. The only way you can explain to two children what it means to not be fighting in a car would be really to point out what fighting is, and that the absence of that is not fighting. So you'd be like, well, you're raising your voices, you're screaming, you're hitting each other. When you're not doing that, then you're not fighting. That would be how we'd express that. And the same thing applies when it comes to self-kindness or self-love. It is actually recognizing when we're critical of ourselves, when we're harsh on ourselves, when we're trying to micromanage, and see that the alternative to that, the absence of that, that is self-love, that is self-kindness. Sometimes it is obvious to us that we are like, yeah, I'm really hard on myself. I critique myself all the time. I'm never satisfied with myself. But sometimes we don't recognize it. Sometimes people are like, I'm always kind to myself. I don't think this really applies to me. But what can really help there is to like take a look at these questions we ask ourselves that can look like open-ended, exploratory, logical questions, but that are really just masked self-criticism. For example, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Such a common question in our world. And if we transcribe that question, it actually reads out as, I am doing something wrong. I'm definitely doing something wrong. I just can't figure out what it is. So we can see that here is the assumption that we're doing something wrong, which is self-criticism. In reality, we're never doing anything wrong. We're just trying to support ourselves and find our way to where we want to be. We're not doing anything wrong in a sense that we're doing something like malicious or anything like that. So just recognizing that when we say like, what am I doing wrong? That is actually a version of self-criticism. That is really helpful. And similarly with why can't I get it? If you ask ourselves the question like, why can't I get this? We can transcribe that as like, there's something I'm missing that I don't understand because I'm just not smart enough. Everybody else gets it, but I seem to not be able to get it. You can see this too is just an expression of self-criticism, where we're assuming that there's something we're not smart enough to understand. Or this one, why am I not further along? We can transcribe it as like, I should be further along. Like I should be sleeping more. I should be more calm, or I shouldn't be where I am right now. It's been this long and I'm still here. Why am I not further along? This is also an expression of self-criticism. We're saying like, I shouldn't be here. I should be there. And so we're thinking we're doing something wrong because we're not where we think we should be, right? And now when you hear this, you might either be in the camp that is like, yeah, it's obvious to me that I tend to be critical of myself. I am hard on myself. And that is very helpful, because then you see clearly that the absence of that is self-love, is self-kindness, and that will lead you where we want to be. And if it hasn't been obvious to you, then I hope, this discussion, this episode will really help you, because when you see where you've been critical and hard on yourself, you see that invitation for self-love. Now, one more thing I want to add here is that it is a practice. It sounds so paradoxical, because why would we not want to be supportive of ourselves and have our own back and be kind and gentle with ourselves? But another reality is that we are like, our brain is a survival machine. It constantly wants us to be on guard and look for solutions, and it tends to be in this kind of problem-solving mode, rather than like the accepting and the kind of non-doing mode. So what we're going towards here is that it takes time. Self-kindness for all of us, I think, something we cannot have enough of. And we all have a tendency towards like pushing each other, which is just that, our brain is a survival machine. We are designed for survival. And we often think that the more we do, the more we figure out, the more action we take, the more we'll survive. But when it comes to like our inner experiences, peace of mind, peaceful sleep, it is the complete opposite, right? But anyway, my point is just that we're hardwired in a way that leads to a place where it can take time for us to develop this practice of being more kind and gentle with ourselves. So it can take time. Again, don't pressure yourself. It can take time, but once this starts to change, it'll truly change sleep and really life for you forever. I have no doubt about that. I've seen that so many times. I think it's so helpful. So let me know if that made sense to you and any questions you have. Thanks, StreetHD, for bringing this up, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Hi, it's me, Daniel, and I hope you found a lot of value in the video that you just watched. Now, I know insomnia can be an incredibly lonely place. You can feel isolated from everybody else because your friends, family members, coworkers, acquaintances simply don't understand what you're going through. And because they don't understand what you're going through, they also can't truly help you. Now imagine a place where everybody does understand you. Everybody has shared your experiences and know exactly what type of support and guidance will lead you to where you want to be, which is a place of peaceful sleep, feeling like yourself again, and feeling connected with the world. Such a place does exist, and it is called the Insomnia Immunity Program. And if you think it is time to join, then simply head over to our website, thesleepcoachschool.com, join the program, and we look forward to seeing you on the other side.